You know those times in the day when you can't fit in a full podcast? Running out to the store, walking the dog, or washing the dishes? Jam is the new way to listen when you have just enough time for the perfect short audio playlist. Get started at listentojam.com/podcast and get your daily Jam playlist filled with more voices in less time. With Jam, you can choose from news, parenting tips, wellness advice, and more. Go to listentojam.com/podcast and satisfy your curiosity with short audio. Discover something new every day.
Whether it's Kroger's Simple Truth Turkey or mac and cheese with Murray's English Cheddar or pie made with fresh Cosmic Crisp apples, there are many dishes we look forward to sharing during the holidays. And Kroger has all the fresh ingredients you need to turn today's holidays into tomorrow's memories. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Get more ways to save at the Buy 5 or More Save $1 each sale. Just buy 5 or more participating items and save $1 each with card. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Welcome to the Hypothalamic Amenorrhea podcast. I'm Danny Sheriff, your host, certified fertility awareness practitioner, functional nutrition counselor, and founder of the HA Society, and of course, an HA recovery coach who has walked where you currently are walking. This is the place to come if you care about getting your period regularly. This podcast aims to educate, inform, and keep you motivated on your period and HA recovery track. So let's dive in. But last thing, nothing on the show should be taken as medical advice, so please seek the advice of your physician. So, over a year ago, I created something called the 7-Day HA Recovery Commitment Challenge, and I've been running it for over a year. It was this free email-based challenge, so lots of reading, but you would get an email every day for 7 days to help you overcome and tackle the different but important areas that you need to be checking off in order to get your period back. Now, over time, I have collected some really great feedback, and upon working with all of these wonderful, amazing women, really started to learn even more about what works and what doesn't. And so I'm excited to be introducing to you guys the updated version. It's called the 7-Day HA Recovery Kickoff, and it is totally designed to help you not just commit to the process and have all of your ducks in a row in terms of important factors that need to be tackled and issues that need to be overcome in order to get your period, but the whole thing is now based in video. So you can listen/watch, and every day for 7 days, we will tackle nutrition. There's actually 2 days of that because it's so big. We'll tackle lifestyle, we'll tackle exercise, your support network, your mindset game. Each video goes from anywhere between 12 minutes and 5 minutes, so it's not very long, but you'll get all of the most important areas and the best tips and strategies for how to implement them. Because I know that going through recovery is hard. There's always an area for each person that is a little bit difficult to execute on. And so the goal, or maybe a lot difficult. So the goal of this challenge is to help you have the awareness, the self-awareness, and the tools and strategies you need to overcome each of the different issues that AHA recovery faces for us. So get on it. It's great if you're at the very beginning of recovery, or if you're halfway through. I mean, we never know how far through we are until it's over, do we? But no matter where you're at, it can be a really good opportunity to check in and look for blind spots and areas where you might be dropping the ball in your nutrition, in your lifestyle, maybe it's your support network that's a problem, maybe exercise is something that you are still struggling with making changes to. So check it out. Go to thehasociety.com/7-day-challenge, or the link will be on the website. So it may be in the show notes of this show. It may not be. Just go to thehasociety.com and you'll find it in the footer, or you'll find it in the pop-up that happens when you visit the page. And we will see you for day 1 of the challenge.
Hey everyone, I'm taking a quick sip, letting my guest say, yes, I accept this recording. And very pumped to be bringing you, everyone, an episode today, a recovery story from Mishi, right? You are publicly known as Mishi.
Yes, Mishi Rose.
Mishi Rose. She's an HA recovery coach, which is really cool, but she's also on our team here at the society, which is, I am so happy to have her as a part of our team, helping with our content, and helping with more new things all the time. And I thought it was about time that she came on the show and told her story, right? Because no one works at the HA Society who hasn't had a problem with HA. So it only makes sense that she's welcomed onto the show. And I haven't heard her story, honestly, at all. So I'm hearing this story for the first time along with you guys. I hear it's a cracker, which is very exciting. So welcome, Mishi.
Hi, I'm so excited. I feel like I'm like having a fangirl moment as well. Cause when I went deep down the rabbit hole of like searching all about HA, it took me, but this was a long time ago too. So it wasn't like, as of recently, cause now if I search your things, they pop up on Google pretty well. But like before I felt like I found the only way I found you was like through some search of a search. And then like you popped up, and then I was like, but at that point too, I was already through my recovery. But the long and the short of that was I like binged your entire pod, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And it's just it's also great to be a part of your team now too, and just learning from you and, you know, continuing to serve in so many other ways than I thought I'd be able to. So I'm so happy.
I love having people on who have like their own, like on the team, right? Their own perspective and their own knowledge of different things that I don't necessarily have. Doing everything myself is super not fun and less, I don't know, like, I just feel like it's not serving everyone, right? So having people like you with your own experiences to put your own like flavor and twist on our company is the best. So thank you for being with us.
Of course. Yeah.
Well, okay. So where does it all start? Like, what's your story?
I feel like my story is kind of crazy, but I think everybody has a crazy story, I would assume. The best way I'll describe it, and just make sure when I'm chatting that I do mention a few things like my wedding dress, my wedding ring, and my relationship with my husband. I guess all of those things are relating to my wedding, of course. And then, you know, buying really expensive clothes, like make sure I hit on those points, because like those were some like really pivotal points for me. But the best way I can describe my story is like, I just feel like I almost just blacked out. Like I just turned into just I don't know. Let's go back to like kind of how I was prepped and primed. And that's kind of how I describe it, is just like growing up, I just was always super, super insecure. Like I was insecure about, you know, coming from a single like parent family. I always thought that we didn't have enough, like, so just very insecure in that point. And then I was a gymnast too. So I had an 18-year long gymnastics career. All of the education that I'd ever gotten about health and wellness came through magazines. So I'm like a total 90s kid, I guess, you know, and I feel like that was like prime diet culture. And I always had a lot of people in my life that were always on a diet, that were always picking their bodies apart. I like remember being in high school, and like, I don't exactly remember when I started dieting, but I guess it would have to be when I was like 15 or something, or in high school. Like I remember having like older kids buying me like diet pills. Like, so like, I don't know if you're ever familiar with Hydroxycut, but at the time you couldn't purchase Hydroxycut unless you were 18. So I had to like get somebody who was older than me buying me like diet pills when I was in high school. So it was just super ridiculous. So, anyways, I just feel like when I came into, you know, my actual HA story, I was already just prepped and primed, and like I was never diagnosed with an eating disorder, but I had all of the traits of somebody with disordered eating, and I looked and did all the things that you would if you had an eating disorder. So anyways, like we'll fast forward to, I think it was like 2018. Guess it doesn't matter, but that's like when, I got engaged, and it wasn't even like 5 minutes of being engaged. There was this older couple there, and they saw the whole thing, and they came up and they congratulated me. And the first thing out of my mouth to them, because I forget what they said, but maybe they were just like, oh, what are you going to start planning? What's going to be your next step? And I was like, I need to figure out how to lose 5 pounds. Like I was already in that like mindset, that tunnel vision of like nothing else matters besides what I look like on my wedding day. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that like I just felt like I'd never had control over my life. And I was like, the only thing I have control over is like, my body. So this is what I'm going to control. So anyways, like my husband and I, like I said, I've always been kind of like a serial dieter. So I've like literally tried all the diets, and the wedding diet had to be like the diet of all diets. And like the one diet I had never tried and was super trendy at the time was keto. And I was like, okay, let's do this. And we were like doing it together. So it was just so much easier to adhere when you have like a partner in crime doing it together. And like, for some reason, we also like had decided like, okay, we're going to also work out twice a day. We're going to get up in the morning and just like go walk, or we're going to run. And then when we get home from work, we're going to also like go lift weights or whatever. So we had like a 2-a-day schedule in there. And then we started keto, and like, I swear that was like my demise in that like moment, because like, I don't know, like I just felt like once you get into some sort of deficit, and it was really easy to get into a deficit in keto, like you just kind of just go down this, it was wild. I'm trying to like describe it in a sense of like, like the whole intermittent fasting. I don't know if you've heard of like if you have a disordered eating past, or if you have an eating disorder, like you're more susceptible to developing an eating disorder if you start intermittent fasting or if you start keto. Like I've read a few like articles and things on that of like, intermittent fasting isn't for you if you have a disordered eating history or things like that. So it's just like, I feel like that particular diet really brought those traits out of me that were already set in motion for me, if that makes sense. So,
well, I think that we can safely say, based on the research too, that that like certain things like obsessive compulsive disorder, for example, you can be genetically predisposed to being more likely to have OCD. Yeah. And people with eating disorders or people with OCD are very likely to have eating disorders. And people who go on regimented diets that have rules and things to follow are going to be pretty susceptible to being set off with one of those things. And we're learning more and more too that more people have OCD or anxiety disorders, or even like ADHD and things like that. Like a lot more people are suffering with these things than we truly know. And so, yeah, I do think people are genetically predisposed to be more affected.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because I mean, all of what you're saying, it all makes a lot of sense. And I think on top of that, and on top of just like my environment and my upbringing and everything that I thought to be true about, health and diet and all of those things being intertwined, it was just like this divine timing for me to have this full blown, I say like eating disorder, but it was like nothing that I was ever diagnosed with. But like the more you will hear about my story, I got way out of control. So, I felt really great. And that was the one thing that kind of kept me going, like going into it a little bit deeper. I felt really great, but like, I mean, as you probably know, like I felt great because I was running off of like stress hormones, like. And then I started like, I lost a lot of weight pretty easily. And I just started getting a ton of compliments from people. And it just, the way that I felt and all the compliments that I was getting from everybody wanted to know my secret. And of course I thought I was like morally superior than everybody around me because I was so restrictive and like I was like so good at adhering to this diet. And then it became like, okay, well, if fasting, like, well, I always skip breakfast anyway. So I was like, oh, well, fasting is pretty easy. So like, if this is good and it's making me lose weight, I'll just fast even longer. And I was already in that keto community and everybody's preaching like, oh, OMAD, that's what you should do. So it was like 1 meal a day. So I was down to 1 meal a day. And then I was like, okay, well, if low carb is good, then no carb must be better. So I was just in this mindset of like, just everything was extreme. Like everything was black and white and everything was extreme. And I was going to do everything to a T. And it just, you know, it was crazy because I felt like I've always lived outside of my body in some sort of way, in the extent of just being like not being comfortable being myself and always trying to align to societal standards and contort myself. So it was just, I always felt like I had that out of body experience. But when I describe my experience with like keto and HA and that the whole 2.5 year period of just being like completely out of body, like I feel like I just blacked out. I have no idea who that person was because I just got so crazy and so fixated on what I looked like, so fixated on food and exercise. And I couldn't, at first we could go out to restaurants or whatever because I could navigate menus and I wasn't like as orthorexic because that was like kind of like the next thing that happened in line was like, you know, orthorexia and just being super obsessed with like, you know, the quality of the food and what I was eating. It was just like another, because I had mastered keto so well. So I was like, okay, I have to go and I have to fixate on something else here. So the next thing came was like being super orthorexic. And that's when it was like, I really couldn't go out to restaurants and I didn't realize how much that impacted the relationship with my friends as well as the relationship with my husband, because he's super, like he has just like such an outgoing personality and that's the environment that he shines in. And he loves going out. He loves socializing. He loves going out to eat and being with his friends. And when that part of me took over, it was like, we didn't go out to eat anymore. And if we did go out to eat, it was like, I made all these modifications to my meals. I even got to the point, this is like so sad. I got to the point that I was like calling ahead to restaurants, talking to the chefs, making sure that they weren't cooking in canola oil.
I've done that before, so you're okay.
Okay,
you're in company.
I'm glad I'm not the only one because
Ashley and I taught people to do that.
Well, I did too, because at this time, like, I guess like in my journey too, like when I started keto, I was on it for that year I did it for 2.5 years. Right. But in that year, like I was saying, I felt so good. I was getting compliments from everybody. I was kind of getting into that, I'd like to say like holistic space and really trying to understand the body, but I was understanding it from a filtered standpoint of being like, it has to fit the narrative of keto. And if it doesn't, like, because keto is like the way that our bodies are supposed to function. That's what I thought in my head at that time. So anyways, that's when I started getting certified as a health coach too. But it's so sad because like I did it in a way of more vanity and control versus actually from a place of wanting to serve and really truly better my own health. So anyways, to your point, I started health coaching, but it was still from a place of like control. And I was teaching people that too. I was giving them all like, here's what you do. Like you can go out to eat and you can still be healthy, but you know, order off the sides. Don't order the main dishes. And if it has sauce, like don't do the sauce and like make sure, like I even have like a book that has like all of these things in it too, of like being like, you can request them to not cook your food in like canola oil and request them to cook it here. So it was just like, I felt like I was doing all the right things because there were other people who I respected so much in my space doing that too.
Yeah.
So it's good to hear that somebody else was not only doing it, but coaching it in some sort of ways too. But so yeah, it got to the point where it was like I was calling ahead, and that was making my husband extremely uncomfortable, because he was like, you're taking the joy out of something I love so much. I mean, these aren't the words verbatim that he said, but it was just like, it's a known thing. It's just like that's the joy in his life, and I kind of almost like stole that away from him. And then it came to like, okay, well, at least we can go to friend's house and we can hang out and have cookouts and go to social gatherings. But it was like, then I started like bringing all of my own snacks and my own treats. And then at the ending point, it got really bad where it was like, I wouldn't even eat like conventionally raised meat. And I like made, it wasn't like I was just walking in with like my own meat, but it was like something I was like making known and projecting onto other people too. So it was just like I just got really out of control. So it wasn't me just doing it. I was affecting everybody around me, and I was projecting my beliefs onto other people, and it just got super out of control. And so I feel like I'm not like making a clear line of like what my story here, but when it came to my wedding, I the dress that I got, it had to be altered so much, because this was a point where I was like, we got engaged, I got the wedding dress, and this is when I was like, my body was changing so much, and I was losing so much weight so quickly. Like the person who was altering my dress couldn't even keep up with it. And I think I had like 20 alterations or something like that. It was insane. I probably spent, and this is like the depressing part, is like, I did get my dress from like an off-price place, but I probably spent as much as I spent on my dress on alterations. And they had altered it so much that it had like lost all integrity. And when I was actually came to my wedding day, I hated the dress. I felt so uncomfortable in it. Like we had to do all of these things to like just keep it on my body. Like it was so ridiculous. And so and then the other thing with my wedding ring too, it was like, and this is kind of explains the in and out of body experience that I was kind of having in there, where it was like, I was in this level of awareness of like what I was doing. And then I would go out and just being like, nope, gotta keep doing it. Like, you know what I mean? And then, so like, with my wedding dress alterations, it was, I was going through that too, about being like, this is probably the fact that I'm going through so many alterations is a red flag. But it was also feeding like that, I want to say like ED voice, where it was like, this is so good. The fact that I can't fit into my wedding dress in a good way, like it's falling off.
And I do this sometimes. I like pause to go down a rabbit hole with people, but this is very relatable. And something that I think that I want to point out to people in conversations with clients, or just, just HAs in the community, we get really worked up when we have to go up a size. That's scary. That's a red flag. Or my clothes don't fit. And we tell ourselves, yes, like, of course it's a little bit jarring, but I also just, I really like those pants. I really, I don't want to have to spend the money, like buying new clothes is expensive, and it's all a story. Because if you were getting smaller, you'd be like, oh, well,
yeah,
I'll just buy new, like, wasted money, but it's okay because so there's something that's feeding you, and it's a conditioning, like you said, you've been groomed to be this way from a young age, like that you're checking a box. And even though there's a primal like intuition to you that's like, something here is a bit obsessive, or like a bit, I'm probably getting too thin, like I know this, but I'm gonna keep going because it's like everyone around me thinks it's great. And yeah, like it's just
Yeah, I love that point though, that we're cool with like even purchasing new clothes and all the things when we're losing weight, but it's the hardest thing whenever you start to put on weight. Being on both ends of those spectrums in a span of 3 years. But the other thing too was like when it came to my wedding ring, because I remember like when because I was also a fashion jewelry buyer as well. So I knew the size of my ring. It wasn't like I was just guessing out of thin air. And I told my husband what it was, and the ring, like it somewhat fit, right? But like I had dropped so much weight, and he was like, "How could you gauge the size of your ring so badly?" Because it was like my ring was falling off like in my sleep. Because there were a couple times I woke up and I was like, "Oh my God, where is it at?" It was like somewhere in the bed because it was like flying off. And so anyways, whenever we went to get the actual like wedding bands, this was like, maybe a month before our wedding. And I was I was like at my thinnest point then. And I just remember the size difference in my ring and the ring that I tried on there. They're like, "Oh, we'd have to size it, and you're going to probably be this ring size, right?" And they're like, "Are you okay with that?" The fact that it's just like, I felt like that was the universe even, tapping me, being like, "Hey, this isn't okay." Like, and I still was like, because like, who's gonna put a ring on your finger and say, "Oh, like it fits and it should be this size"? They're gonna be, "Are you okay with that?" Whatever. Anyways, maybe I'm reading into that too much, but like in that moment, I just like swallowed my feelings, and I was just, yes, because that was another means of control, being like, this is an expensive item. If because of the way it was designed, if you go to resize back up, it would just like, again, the whole integrity piece of it. So it was like all these factors of lining up, of being like, this is an expensive item. If you can't change it, so this is what it has to be. And so in my head, I was like, well, that just means that I have to stay at this weight. And this is this is a thing that's going to make me stay right here, because I always also had this thing in my head. I was like, I'm not going to be one of those girls who like, can't fit into her wedding dress, like, then the year after or the year after that. And I don't even know why I think about things like that. But I was like, I'm not going to be one of those girls who just like, after she gets married, just like lets herself go. So like those just like weird thoughts were in my head. But like when we got the wedding, like actual band, it was so small. And I actually had to take it off probably like 6 months ago, because it felt so constricting to me, and like I could feel it on my hand. And it was like I noticed myself falling into like almost old behaviors. And I was like, it was that stupid ring, because like it reminded me of that time. It was also like really constricted on my finger. So I was like, the moment that I took it off, I could just like tell, like I was like, okay, I just feel a little bit more freer, and I don't feel like I have to be in these like old ways of being or whatever. So, and I did the same thing too with like, because my clothes didn't really fit me. So like I had to go get new clothes, and I bought clothes that were so uncomfortable for me to purchase at that price point, because I was like, if I have these really expensive clothes, it's going to make me stay here. And I just think like those were the moments where it was also the universe being like, this is really tough for you. Like, this is hard. Cause this was like a year and a half, almost 2 years in. And it was just like, this is really hard staying here. Like this isn't easy. I have to really micromanage everything. I'm in control of everything. And like, I can't let myself go. So I'm going to put like these control mechanisms in here to keep
You like needed to dig yourself even deeper as you like start, like as the voice gets louder saying this is the wrong way to go. The eating disorder is like, let's tie more.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was like, I don't even know who that person was, because I can't even, I can empathize and relate in a way, but it's just like, I don't even know who you were. Like, how did you get to this point where you were so crazy? Like, that's why I say, like, I feel like I just kind of just blacked out. I feel like I was just like this tornado, just like tearing through life, and like, just the only thing that mattered to me was like the way that I looked. And I mean, hindsight, reflecting back, like it does all makes sense. And I'm not giving myself like, I'm not playing victim in any way, but it just like, it all makes sense. It was just because I felt like too, once I got my period back and all the things, like, going through all the mindset work and really stepping into like spiritual like health and things like that. It was just like I could see why that happened. It was because I was so unhappy with who I was and trying to contort myself and into being what society expected me to be. I was in a job that I absolutely freaking hated. I was driving like 2 hours to work and 2 hours back. And I was just like, I would just like wasn't living a life that I truly loved and enjoyed. And I never was, because I was so insecure from just even starting out and being a kid. And that carried through so much into how I started acting out and behaving. And once I started losing weight and I started getting attention from people, like this one time we were out and I don't know, some guy like literally reached out of a window, like, because we were standing outside and it was like a patio, whatever. So he was like reaching out of a window, trying to grab me. I told him I'm with my husband and he didn't even care. But in my head, that's registering as like, oh my gosh, I must look so good that this guy doesn't even care that my husband's standing right here. And my husband's like, this guy is like 6'4". So he's like, he's not even intimidated by him. Just like, oh my gosh. And in my head, I'm like, he probably is like, oh my gosh, you're so skinny or so blah, blah, blah. But it's just like all of these things were like, I was finally aligning to societal standards and I had so much confidence, but it was because I was finally living up to these, impossible societal standards. And that was just like what gave me all of this confidence and what gave fuel more to this craziness. So
yeah, I mean, I think that's a big part of why this work is so hard. Like we say in almost every episode, really great. The way to get your health back is quite easy, like simple. You just eat more, stop doing the behaviors you're doing. But it's so hard to do that because you truly believe that this smaller body or this ideal that you're fitting into is going to bring you what you want, the safety and security and the value and the love and the worth. And saying goodbye to that, because like you just said, right? There's the cloud. Hey everyone, before we jump into this episode, we have some very exciting news. January 10, the next cohort of the Restore program is here. And we have put some like rocket fuel on this program. We are so excited.
Yes, we are so pumped to bring you a program with weekly, yes, you heard that right, weekly live coaching. And this isn't just random, hey, what's kind of come to our mind, but this is very structured coaching sessions that we feel is vital to your recovery, meaning that we're going to get straight to the root that's holding you back.
Totally. We ran the very first version of this just at the endish of last year, and it went so well. We saw what worked, what didn't. We fine-tuned it, and the feedback was incredible. And I think it's to what you were saying, Ashley, this weekly coaching, it's not just these group calls. It's where we do food reviews for every single person. You'll have 3 food reviews so we can review your diary and give you actual feedback on exactly what you are eating as you move through the program to help make sure you're moving forward, as well as exercise reviews and any kind of advice that you need around that kind of thing. And the coolest part, which we didn't do last time and we're so excited to be adding in, is there will be email and one-on-one call check-in points as well for each client.
Basically meaning that you're going to have the structure of how to move forward and the support all in one. It's literally the best coaching package you're going to come across. Like I was joking with Danny, but this might be the greatest bundle in the world. Like we are bundling all of our services to be the most effective course you could go through and get your period back.
I think that's a really great way to put it, right? We've taken like the elements of one-on-one coaching that we do that's so effective and the elements of our community, the HA Society, put it together in one and been like, okay, here's the community aspect. We're going to do these live coaching sessions, but we have developed like an actual syllabus for all of it that we know through all of our experience with all of these clients. We know that these are the fundamental things you need to know, right? And so we've put that in a class with a group and brought one-on-one coaching in to help make sure you're getting the individualization that is extremely important for each person. And it's amazing. Like, it is literally the best bundle, the best bundle in the entire world.
Yes.
So we don't want to keep you from the episode much longer, but we want to prepare you. January 10, the Restore program is opening. There is 100% a spot with your name on it. Because if you're done wasting time, like, right, Ashley, you should just get in these people's ear.
Basically, we don't want you wasting any more time on like something that can be fixed. You're not the unicorn. I hate to tell you that you're not the unicorn. And I don't want you to be the unicorn. Come get your hormones restored, your period restored. And if you want to have a baby, let's do that too. I mean, I can't exactly help you, like,
yeah, we're there.
The process, but we can get you ready. You can get that too.
Yeah. It's like, what is getting your period back worth to you? Is it worth waiting anymore? Is it worth continuing to DIY it? Which there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to actually get your period back and have it be in the healthy parameters and work hard on your relationship with your body and with food, this program is 100% perfect for you. So come and get the help of both Ashley and myself, both of us, right? Yes. Taking you through this program along with everyone else that joins you. Come and do it. Check out thehasociety.com/restore. Sign up for the wait list. Get ready, because Restore is coming and 2023 is going to be your year.
Yes. Excited to see you there.
Nice. All right. On with the show. You felt it. Like, I do feel confident. Like, I'm in control. I am superior. How do you just let that go? How do you just say bye-bye to that? Right. So I'm very curious to hear how you get out of this.
Oh gosh. I think so. By the end of it, I was just exhausted. Obviously everything that I was doing was at an extreme measure. And I even got a chat at work, and they were like, pulled me in. And they're like, you were really on fire the beginning. Something is going on. And I'm just in my head, I'm like, well, it's because I freaking hate this job. But I was like, more so, it was like I was literally spending so much time on my freaking phone, or pretending like I was answering emails, but I was really on the computer, like looking at recipes and just like literally looking at food all freaking day. And like all I could do was like think about food. So at that point I was eating one meal a day, and I'd sit down at dinner with my husband, and we would be eating dinner, and I would be talking about what I wanted for dinner tomorrow. Like, it was like, that's how obsessed I was with food. And that you lose all connection with people too, because that's all you care about, nothing else. And it was because I was so undernourished, and I was just, my body just wanted food, and that's all I wanted to talk about. That's all I wanted to look at. So anyways, your point of like, how did I get through that? It was just like, I always did this thing, just from like an early age of being a gymnast, of being like, I can push myself as hard as I want, and I'm not going to die. So that would always get me through like really tough practices and things like that. And I just like remember the one day when I kind of like snapped or whatever, where it was like, I was having just a tough day, and I like looked at myself in the mirror, and I was like, well, at least you're healthy. And I was like, in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, you are not healthy at all. Nothing that's going on right now is healthy. Nothing about your behaviors around food is healthy. Nothing about your weight is healthy. And you don't even have a period. Like, get out. So anyways, it was like that moment where I snapped, where I was just like, I had this moment of realization of like how truly unhealthy I was. The relationships I had with myself and with everybody else was just so unhealthy. So it was just like, that was like what snapped me into like taking the next steps of just being like really going down the rabbit hole of like, okay, how do I reverse all of this? And how did I get myself into this mess? Because it's like, you kind of know how you got into it, but it just always helped by like reaching out to other people. And I think finally too, I was like chatting with this girl, like I'd met her on Instagram because I was like down in rabbit hole of like missing periods. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? Because I was trying to also, I was trying to like pen it on something else. Like I was like, doing all the research and being like, well, it's not my lifestyle. That's truly not it. So anyways, I just like remember chatting with this one girl on Instagram, like through DMs for a really long time. And she also had experienced HA, and she was like, I'm literally telling you, you have HA or whatever. And I was like, okay, say I have HA, whatever. What am I going to have to do to get my period back? And like, she was telling me all the things. I'm like, no. That's not like, I'm hearing you, but that's not what I'm going to do. But like, I don't know. It just took like slow little steps to getting to a point where I came to a realization that this is what I have. This is what I have to do. And then once I kind of like reversed into it or backed into it a little bit, I swear it was like the first 2 weeks that I allowed myself like full on permission to like eat and all of the things and do completely opposite of what I was doing before. I swear like a switch flipped in me where I was just like, I don't know. The craziness like lifted from me. I was like, and I was able to then be able to just really sit in the discomfort of all of it, the discomfort of what got me to that point, as well as the discomfort of what I was about to be facing. So in that time too, COVID was happening. So it was a little bit easier, I think, on me to be alone, to sit alone, and to kind of not be in public and all the things and really sit in my stuff and just work through it. So.
Okay. I mean, I feel like that sounds kind of miraculous. Does it feel like it was miraculous? The sort of like, well, not really, because you said you backed into it. So what did that time frame look like from hearing the possibility that this is an option, right? That like recovery, like weight gain is an option, through to dipping your toe into it? What did that look like? Because you almost kind of skimmed over that. I'm really curious.
See, and it's because it's like really tough. I think because it was so tough for me, it was like I don't remember a lot of it. So it's just like another one of those ways of me just like escaping from any sort of problem, I guess. But so I think it was like June. June is like when I was like, because I remember this is like what I did too when I finally figured it out of what it was, what I was gonna have to do. I like also had found like Stephanie Buttermore or whatever. I saw her all in video, right? And so I had my husband, I was like, hey, I'm gonna need you to watch this. This is what's gonna be happening. So I was like, I just like needed his like approval almost of being like, hey, because like I always just led with my body, and like I was like, my husband's not gonna love me anymore if I don't look like this. And I just like need to let him know like this is gonna be in some ways temporary. So I like had him like watch that video with me, and it was like that moment was the moment of like me accepting of like this is what's gonna have to happen. But I think too for me, like I kind of said, like I was so exhausted. I could not diet another day. Like I couldn't. I was like already at such an extreme where I was like barely eating, and I was starting to gain weight. So it was just like everything that I'd done had like backfired on me. And so like once I had gotten to that point, like I was just exhausted. So like when I realized what it was and what I had to do, it was like I kind of like I just took really teeny tiny baby steps. And I at that time too, I was already doing a lot of like mindset and like spiritual work, but it had really nothing to do with like diet or my body. It was more so to do with like living up to societal expectations. So I kind of was able to transfer some of that work into how I dealt with like gaining weight, how I dealt with, eating more and things like that. So whenever like my first step was like I started with lunch. Like that was my first thing, is like I was like I just need to eat something during the day. And it was like something so small. I think it was like pumpkin puree and like coconut butter is like what I was like, that's how small I was starting. And like I just was like I had to sit with those feelings as I was just eating that, about like being like, oh my God, this is too many calories, or I felt wrong for like eating lunch. Like I was like, no, you can fight through these types of pain, or like I was just listening and observing those thoughts. That's kind of how it started. It was just like, all right, I'm just gonna start eating a little bit. And then I was like, okay, I feel better as I'm eating. So it was like I just allowed myself to eat more, allowed myself to observe more thoughts. And then I was just like, okay, well, I'm just not going to let these thoughts like really affect how I'm going to be behaving, because I started feeling so much better. And then I was able to like actually go out to eat with like my husband again. And so it was just kind of like all of these like little teeny tiny like domino steps of, but at the whole time I was always observing how I was thinking about things. And it wasn't to say that like, I just observed thoughts and I just ignore them the entire time. Like, yeah, there were times where I took like 10 steps back and I reverted back to old behaviors, but I just feel like I had this like level of awareness, of understanding of where those thoughts came from, if that makes sense. And I don't want to seem like I skated through it, because I didn't. It was extremely painful. Like I didn't take any pictures of myself for like probably like a year and a half. Like we covered the mirrors in the house. So it's just like, there were ways that I coped with it to make it a little bit easier. And that was like not looking at myself at all and not taking any pictures, and like covering myself in like ginormous clothes, even when I hadn't even gained any weight in the first place. So it was like, I did take some sort of like extreme measures as I went along, but at the same time, I was trying to, I guess, giving myself a lot of grace in that time, I guess.
Okay. So it actually makes a lot of sense now that it's not that you didn't skate through it, but what a lot of people don't, they do it in a reverse order, where they're trying to get their period back. Maybe they want to get pregnant, or like their doctor's concerned. And so it just triggers them to try and resolve it. And then they go down this path and it's so hard, and it eventually leads them to what you're just talking about, which is like observing the conversation in your head and questioning where it's actually coming from, and like being curious about like if this is true or if this is something I'm making up in my head. And because you're already doing that work, you're able to begin questioning it and trying to take action and experiment against it in advance. And that's a really cool tidbit for people, right? It's like, this process will be easier for you if you are simultaneously, or if you're listening and you are just like, I'm so curious what you guys are saying, but I'm unable to like make these changes.
Yeah.
That means it's time to observe your thoughts and question them, because that was the thing for me, was the exact same situation as you. The first time anyone ever said that maybe like it's actually okay to have some body fat, like, have you considered not trying to be really thin? And I remember just being like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, and like wholeheartedly believe that person was insane. But at the same time, continuing to listen to what they had to say, because there's something in your brain, there's like a survival in your brain that's like listening. So I that makes a lot of sense that you've gone down this rabbit hole. And I would also be unsurprised to learn that like there are people with a similar story, but they thought that that would just like maybe help them be an even more shining version of societal's idea of perfect, right? Like you're like matching workout gear and you have your smoothie in the morning and you do your journaling and your self-development and you're super crunchy and you like time your workouts with the phase you are in your menstrual cycle and you do all that crap. And it's like, we think that going down that route of like enlightenment will make that better. But what we actually discover is all that's bullshit. And it just like brings you to like the person you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's much easier. So I love learning that about you. That's cool.
It does kind of sound like I skated through a bit, but like it just, I can't express of like how challenging it was, but there was just something in me that was saying like, I don't know. It just,
you knew it at this point. It sounds like you broke in a way.
Yeah, I did. I completely broke. I think I had just known how ridiculous I was about how I was with like at social gatherings. Like I had like friends who would want to go meet up for like lunch or something, or I don't know, dinner. And I couldn't even go to that because I was like asking so many questions. And I just like remember like going back and forth in my head about being like, like, am I going to be able to meet my, carb intake or whatever it is, or am I going to be able to even control myself at this dinner or whatever. So it was just like the amount of energy that it took for me to stay that thin and be at that weight. And it just took so much of my life away from me that I was like, I don't want a life like that anymore. I think I just had this realization that helped me in those moments when it was really, really hard. And I had coping mechanisms that probably like now I wouldn't maybe suggest to somebody else. And that's, the beauty of going through this process and going through it alone is like, you can help people through it. And so they don't have to make the mistakes that you made, because, now there are body image struggles that I do deal with on a daily basis because I wasn't dealing with it in the moment. I covered up mirrors. I wouldn't allow my husband to take pictures of me. We went on vacations and he does pictures of him. And it's just like, I was never there. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I didn't too much skate through it. I just dealt with it in a different way, so it's still very challenging.
Yeah. No, it does. It sounds that way. I guess where I was coming from was just like being able to change direction, right? Because like you're on such a path downwards.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So rapidly to be able to stop that train, get off on the platform and get on a different train, even though you do not want to be there, right? And you want to get off at every single stop, but like you just stay on. Like that is, having that ability and that realization, it has to come from within. You can't do that stuff for someone else, or you can't do that stuff if you are really truly believing that, nothing will ever feel or taste better than skinny feels. Like,
oh God.
It's not going to get you anywhere. None of it's true. It's all absurd.
Oh, it's so funny to like flip through my journal and like even to like help people that are going through the same things, and you voice these things out loud, and like you read back in journals and things like that, and they sound so ridiculous. And it's like I would go to make like a post on Instagram to talk about like, the things that you used to believe when you were in the depths of it. And it was just like, well, I don't even know I'm writing on this because like, of course this sounds ridiculous. Like, but but in all actuality, there are a lot of people who are really suffering with that perspective. So and I think too, it's just like, I have like a very extreme person. Well, I feel like we live in extremes only because our nervous system is just like so like stimulated. But also I just have that extreme personality. So I feel like, being able to flip on and off was a great trait.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Being able to go from, extreme dieting to being like in a place of like healing, I guess. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I think a lot of the things that you shared and those experiences are so relatable. Like everyone's story is different, but the one thing that we all have in common is that there were multiple instances that we can look back on and be like, wow, that was messed up. And wow, that I truly believed that was serving me.
Yeah, it's insane. And I was like projecting it onto other people, like, hey, this is, you should be living like this. You should be eating like this. Oh, so ridiculous. Yeah. Man, it was a wild trip. And I don't know. I'm just happy to be on the other side, honestly. And like the more I think about it, and like I don't know, just the life that it steals away from you. And like anybody who's currently in this situation right now and who is struggling, it's just like, you get a life back, but you get a life back that like, that's better than the life that you had before. Like it is insane. Like I would say like maybe you lived in black and white and maybe now you're going into shades of gray, but you're going to be living in like these magical worlds of color, of like, I don't know how to explain it. So it's just like, it was tough, but I'm happy to have gone through it. I truly am, because I had learned so many lessons, and I don't think I'd be the person I am today without it. And maybe it's unfortunate that I had to get to such a point, but I just don't think I don't know. I just wouldn't be the person I am today without that experience. And all the work that you're putting in is going to be so worth it in the end. So it's just like continue to like lean into those voices and choose the opposite of what you've done before, and that's going to get you on the other side. But choosing to stay the same and choosing to go along with whatever the voices are telling you, or whatever influences are telling you to do, is not going to be working for you. So it's just like, and that's kind of my motto now, is like to stop aligning to what other people say and just like do the opposite.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Like question everything. And like, what do you think?
Yeah.
Do you really think, what do you really want to do? And I love your, like, we really do go from like black and white to technicolor, and we get there over time. I've heard it in so many different ways too. Like life felt 2D and now it's 3D. Like the funny irony is that we go down a path where we choose a black and white path or a 2D path, or just like a rigid path, in the hopes that at the end of that path is the technicolor, the 3D. Like I will reach Havana, and I will then, whatever in the world you think you're going to get. Yeah. Because I can remember not like being sure, but feeling like there was something there. Like if I can just get to this point, something good.
Magical. Yeah.
Right? Something good. And the funny thing is, it really is in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
When you stop. And yes, like you said, we still deal with body image issues every single day.
Yeah.
But it's how you deal with them. And you just know, too much now. You just do. You're just like, yeah, I know it's down that path. And it's unfortunately hardwired now to occasionally think that there's something for you in that down there. But now you're just like way too wise, honestly.
Yeah, I would agree. It's like it's just creating a better relationship with those thoughts. It's just like, I've just come to terms with, obviously they're just going to be there, but I'm just not going to let them impact, my life, because I've chosen the opposite so many times, and it's led to so many better places than it ever led choosing to believe any of those thoughts. So having that sort of evidence is something that I always reflect on. So it's like, I always have these choice point moments where I'm just like, I could either go that way or I could go this way. And like, I don't know, life is just also it's just so much better. And like, I do get triggered sometimes by seeing other people who are in similar behaviors that I was before, but I just like remind myself, I'm just like, like, on the other side of the camera or whatever, how much they truly are struggling. And that's not the way that life is supposed to be. And it's just like, I'm going to continue to have to live against the grain. And I'm just going to have to also be okay with that. Just like I have this relationship with my thoughts, I'm also going to have this relationship with going against the grain. And that's just the way it is. It's just, you have to accept that. At least that's my perspective. I'm not telling you to do that, but
No, I love it. It's so true. Yeah, like that voice will always be there. So are you, and we can't obsess about getting rid of it because it's not going anywhere. You just have to, change. I love that, like your relationship with it. You guys used to be besties. Now you're kind of not. You still say hi on the street, but you just keep walking. It's like, I don't want to hang out with her anymore.
Exactly. And like, life is just so much more fun too. It's just like going on vacation now. I don't even have to like worry about like, oh, is there going to be a gym to exercise in? Or like, I don't have to bring an extra bag of food with me on trips or out. And like, I can just live more in the moment and more in the present time. So
it's so, I still have moments where I'm like, it's cool that life can be this easy.
Yes,
it's cool that I can go there and not feel like I need to just like pack a meal.
Yes. And there are a lot of people in my community that still preach to bring all of these things with you on vacation, making all of the posts of like, this is what I travel with. And it's just like, and I'm speaking from experience of myself, and I'm just like, man, I guess I should be sharing those same things too, or I should be doing those same things too, because that is health. But it's not, it's robbing you and making you believe that that's like healthy. And it's just like, it's really hard because like I have a lot of people that I respect in my community that still do things like that. And I'm just like,
well, you just have compassion for those people.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I'm not going down that path.
Yeah. Well, this was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story and for introducing yourself to our people.
Yeah. I feel like it was maybe a little bit all over the place, but yeah.
those are the best ones. I think there's absolutely people that nodding their head and that are resonating and that are honestly just like inspired and excited to hear someone else say you're on the right path and it's okay that it's hard and that the voice is still there, but like it is possible for you to get off the train, go the other way. And if you feel like, what I love this thing where you have to give it time to like get the evidence that this is working, that you like this. So give it a shot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what I needed along the way, was just evidence and creating that space for the evidence to appear, I think was what was helpful for me too. It's like always having that perspective of like having different perspectives, allowing things to happen, and then being like, oh shoot, this is actually better. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, real quick, where can people find you?
I am most active on Instagram, so that's at Rose, but it's spelled ROSAY _wellness. And I don't know, Danny, you might put that in the show notes if it's if you can't remember how to spell it. But yeah, I'm most active on Instagram. I do have a website. It's roseway.com. But most active on Instagram.
Beautiful. Well, you do our Instagram, so just make sure you tag yourself in the post and people can go there and find you.
Oh yes, yes. I do that content, so I will make sure that I tag myself in the post.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I mean, you're gonna have just knowing you're gonna have the worst time trying to choose your own soundbite.
Oh my gosh, I know, and I'm gonna super overanalyze every single thing I said.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us, and we'll see you guys all next week. And everyone have a great day.
Bye.
This holiday, whether you're making a Kroger Simple Truth turkey for 40 or a Murray's Baked Brie for 2, Kroger has fast, fresh delivery and free pickup, so you can make holiday meals that bring you all together to create memories that last. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Free pickup on orders of $35 or more. Restrictions may apply.
Get more ways to save at the Buy 5 or More Save $1 each sale. Just buy 5 or more participating items and save $1 each with card. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Thank you so much for listening today, guys. Please subscribe to the podcast, and if you could head to iTunes specifically and leave a rating or review, that would help so much because it makes it easier for other people with HA who are Googling around to find the podcast really easily. So if you do that, you're doing a service to all of the women